Boom. Hello and
Podcast.
welcome everybody to
Oh,
another episode of the First Galactic Podcast.
podcast.
My name is Nate,
That makes me Noah.
and today we have a fantastic show for you. We are talking about, and this was brought about by Lego's absolute failure to show up. They tell us we're going to come out with a show or with a game, and for months and months and months lead us on and nothing. And then they say, "Oh, wait, it's going to be a few more months. Sorry about that." Frustrated the heck out of me. So what we decided to do is take other really cool things or potentially cool things that they have in Star Wars and in the movies that they show us, and then drop the ball. And we've come up with a list. We've got quite a few. Noah, do you have one that you want to start with, or we just want to jump in?
Well, I just want to say that Star Wars foreplay game is very, very weak and it lasts way too long. And I'm now uninterested in Lego Star Wars. So you lost. No, they didn't lose anything. I'm
That
not
was
gonna
going to
lie.
get mine as soon as it comes out.
Anyways, we're gonna call this the Hype Squad No Hype Pod failed execution by Star Wars. I think we should just go down the list that we made.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we should go trilogy by trilogy, since
Okay.
we're just mainly talking about the movies here.
Do we want to start with the original? Or do we want to start with episode 1?
I think we should start with the original, like how they were made.
Okay.
Okay. The first thing we wrote down, Boba Fett. Totally hyped up, and this is going to be unpopular opinion because he's now getting his own show, but that wouldn't have happened if Disney hadn't taken over Star Wars and Mando hadn't come out and he hadn't been in Mando and all this stuff. He's a character that just doesn't matter in the original trilogy.
I think that's an interesting thing that you said that, because in my mind, I'm like, if the character was really great and they told the story and gave us this great story, then we wouldn't have anything more to desire. Like Kenobi, right. You have this interesting piece because there's that middle space that's empty, right? And like Anakin, there's this middle space where you're like, well, what was Darth Vader doing? And all of these other things, where there's that middle ground in between the trilogies that you want to learn more and what happened. But then you've got characters like Mace Windu, who he just dies, right? And you're like, you saw him do his stuff and then he dies. And if they wanted to bring something, it would be like way before in present time. But I think that's one thing with Boba that I'm like, I don't really care. I mean, we even see him. Yeah, I'm like, we see young Boba and we see this stuff and we see it in the stories, but because he was so piss poor in the original trilogy, I'm like, doesn't do it for me. I'm just like, whatever.
I didn't hate him in Clone Wars as a young kid, as a cadet. I think it was just too much. Like he was too evil in that. So I didn't hate him, but I didn't like him by any stretch of the imagination. I think Star Wars kind of redeemed themselves with the whole like cadet situation when Ezra goes undercover in Rebels and is a cadet for the Empire. I thought that was a way better execution of showing like the training and whatnot. But overall, yeah, Boba Fett. Does he even say more than like a sentence?
I think he says like 3 lines.
To me, like talking about Han. Yeah.
All
right, so that's our first one, Boba Fett.
Yeah. Again, if you guys want in the comments to tell us that we're wrong or something, go ahead. The next thing we've got is Luke and Leia. Obviously, at the time, we've got to consider this is a brand new thing. So Star Wars has just come out, and there's not a lot you can do and say that, oh, they should have changed it, they should have done this. Obviously, if you're George Lucas, you're probably thinking, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have had people who are the siblings kiss in one of the movies. That maybe wasn't the best idea, but you got to live with it. And sometimes that's just what happens when you want a story to go one way and you realize, oops, then you just pass it by.
So I want to clarify, we're not just talking about Luke and Leia, their characters are overhyped, but or poor execution or whatever. Just the fact that they kissed and there's some sexual tension and this weird like triangulation of Han, Luke, and Leia. and then the fact that Luke is actually her brother, I don't think that gets enough shit.
I don't think. Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And like, and in the movie, like, it's just like, oh, I'm accepting this. Like, he gets his arm cut off, is like, no, and then like makes this realization afterwards, and yada 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 of what the family is. But then it's just kind of like Luke is like stoically like, yes, you are my sister. Like when they have this whole thing, and she's like, oh, I know. Like I just felt it. Like, and there's not like, I don't know. You want some surprise. You want it to be like, wait, what? Like this big reveal, but it just wasn't revealed.
Yeah.
It was just like floated out. You know.
I think it does connect well though with how Luke is portrayed in the sequels. You know how he's like older and wiser and more stoic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was like the intention when the original trilogy was made, but that's another thing we should have maybe led with, is that it's not just the poor execution by Star Wars, but it's that something maybe like wasn't executed at all and then had to be filled in
Later
by 20, 30 years later by the stuff that's coming out now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of starting to bother me a little bit.
Well, yeah, because it's like you want a new story, you want something new. Like I sit there and I'm like, I want to see live action version of this new stuff coming out from the whatever period that we're reading. I can't think in my mind what it was called, but or that or like some show or something. Like I want to see that exist because that's really interesting to me, and they've had all of this time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But in this 30 years, all we've gotten is like 2 books now. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's like, come on, give that to me. And the one thing I want is more content, either in the future or in the past. But like,
Right.
I'd like to see it as a fulfilled. I've got the books, I've got the show, I've got the movie. But obviously, they can't put it all out at once. But I don't know. I feel like they've goofed on that and relied too much on the. We've talked about this, the Skywalker saga. Relied too much on that and didn't build out.
They've just dug themselves into deep holes, and then they kind of like, I think of it like an ant colony, not an ant hill, but like the tunnels that are underneath, right? And it goes down, and then to get themselves out, they just offshoot somewhere else, hoping that like you get distracted by this over here, and you can walk this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You bite, and then they kind of make their way back, and the hole goes down a little further, then you go out another way, and I think that's kind of what Star Wars does. But anyways, let's keep it moving with the original trilogy. The only 2 I see on this list are Lando and Ewoks. I think Ewoks are pretty straightforward in the sense that how can they kill stormtroopers that are armored? They're cute. I love him. I love Return of the Jedi, but like what?
Mm-hmm.
So nothing else for me, anyways, to say about that. And then
I think that's all I got. I think that's about all you can say. Is you're just like, oh yeah, that part doesn't really make sense, but sure, they went with it, and it doesn't detract from the movie. I don't think it's just more of like, okay, that's kind of weird.
A little bit of eye rolling. But at least they learned their lesson. The Porgs weren't carrying sticks and throwing rocks and whatever else. So yeah. Lando, we agreed on this one that his character just doesn't make sense. And then I don't know, I didn't really like him in Solo. Like, it did a good job showing his arrogance.
Yeah, and I liked, I guess, that part. My frustration with it that we were talking about is like, you get Lando, he knows Han, they've got this great relationship, and then for no known reason at all, suddenly Darth Vader is there and he's betrayed him, and you're sitting there and you're like, that came as such a what? That like instead of being like shock value, it's more to like, you sit there and you're, well, I'm confused. I'm like, okay, wait, is he a bad guy? Like, is he actually? And then they don't really touch on it again. He just comes back eventually as like helping, and you're like, where did this? What happened to this guy, and why was he doing this, and what's going on? Like, that part of those stories is the stuff that you miss. But I mean, I get it. At the same time, you don't have the ability to go into every single story when you're making a movie. But just the execution wise, we're looking at specifically like this, I don't think it was done that well.
Yeah, I think the whole point of it was to show like that you can't go against the Empire. You know, it was kind of to set up Return of the Jedi,
Mm.
but I think it did detract from Lando's character a bit, especially seeing
Yeah.
as how he wasn't just in one movie, right? He was in the next movie as well, and so I think they kind of had to expand on him a little bit and show that he's not such a bad guy. And yeah, but Disney's very or not Disney, but Star Wars and Disney, all of them very reactionary. It just makes me think of like the sequels, like Last Jedi got a lot of hate, so let's bring back J.J. Abrams and let's bring a lot of fan service.
Yeah. People didn't like Rose, so let's just eliminate her from the movie and barely have her in there. Like that type of stuff is, I don't know.
I think before we head to the prequels, we hear from our sponsor.
I agree. Ready? All right. Welcome back, everybody. So we have got podcast. Moving on, we're on the prequels.
Yes, Hype Squad, No Hype Pod, Failed Execution, Prequel Edition. Let's do it. What you got for me?
Okay, jumping in. The very first one that we've got is actually we didn't do it. We're gonna go with the Attack the Clones opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we could do love scenes too. We can add those together. Okay, everyone knows, I think, that you despise the opening scene more than anything. I also hate it. Like,
weird.
Like it does nothing for me, and I don't know why they put it in. I always get confused. I'm like, like it clearly is obvious and doesn't do anything to the story. This person just dies, and you're showing that Padme needs to be protected, I guess.
It's just awkward. It's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy when I watch that movie, this is what I do. I say, I'm gonna watch this movie, and I put it on, and then I go do something. I make food or whatever, and then I come back 25, 30 minutes later when the movie gets kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay, we were talking about this part too, because I guess we should continue and expand upon the why it's bad. Is you've got Padme as the queen.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got Padme as the senator. Mm-hmm. But you've got nothing between, nothing to explain it, nothing to show that she's actually doing anything, nothing to show that she has political power, even though she clearly is a political person. Right? You just get these little snippets of her saying like a one-liner, but you don't get like this feeling of she's got this ability and that she is someone that should be assassinated. Because you're like, why on earth would she be just because she happened to know Anakin? Like, now her story means she needs to die. Like, that part is like, okay, you missed out on. You could have told us some story of like she was doing something where there was some fugitives or they were trying to help people escape or do something, and then they're trying to kill her. I would have been much happier with that as an entrance.
That reminds me of something I'm sure we've all seen online. That's like Palpy hired Dooku, who hired Jango Fett, who hired what's her face, the killer lady, who used centipede things.
Who used the droid? Who used the
droid? Right. Yeah, and it's like, wait, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, honestly, I guess we just love the prequels because we didn't write anything else.
We didn't do much. Yeah.
I mean, there's more. You said Darth Maul, but he's expanded upon in Clone Wars and Rebels. So
yeah, it was poorly done in the movie. I don't even know if it was poorly done.
He's
such a cool character. Yeah, like he's just a really cool character. Yet you hardly see, and I think that kind of is what made him cool too. Is that you're like, there's so much mystery about him, but at the same time, you're like, come on. Want something good, or why couldn't he last 2 movies? Why couldn't he even died in the second movie? And
I like that a lot. I like that better because I don't really like General Grievous that much. I think he was a little overhyped, and then like because he's only in Revenge of the Sith, like he just shows up and all of a sudden is like the man. Like he is the focus of the Clone Wars, right? You capture him and you end the war. This dude doesn't have Force abilities. He's killed a handful of Jedi. Cool. Why is he your main focus?
Yeah. Well, okay, that, and then if you think about like the second movie, who's the bad guy in the second movie?
Dooku.
Okay, but why?
Palpy.
Well, but he only shows up in the last like 15 minutes, right? Like he's in there when they get to Geonosis, but he's not doing anything really. He's just
so
there.
Palpy could have been
and
a
like
bit more in the second one, I think.
Yeah, but that's my thing is like they're missing like a core bad guy that like is the bad character that you've got in the beginning, and it's just kind of like that first part of where it's the mystery, but you're like all of that mystery that didn't lead to anything that suddenly just put them on Geonosis, and now the last minute we're like, oh yeah, we have this whole army, by the way, here we go. Like there wasn't that sense of like I have this omnipresent bad guy that is going to be involved in everything, right? It's almost too much mystery and not enough like this core person is the whole thing coming against us.
I do like the mystery though of Count Dooku when he's got Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones, and then Obi-Wan's like spitting in that thing.
Oh yeah,
and he tells him all this stuff, and like that's such a good amount of mystery because it's like, wait, he's telling the truth here, but you're not gonna believe him, So that I like that part.
But that takes so long to get to,
Yeah.
Like there was no real lead up to that except for the one scene right before that when they're looking down at him in his little meeting with all the people. But like you don't really get the sense that it's bad or ominous. Like you're like, oh, they're just planning stuff.
You know what I just thought of? Something that's super obvious that we missed about the prequels, but I think we missed it because it's so obvious and it's been talked about. Jar Jar. And not just that he's a bad character in the first one, but that him and Rose are the same character almost. You introduce this person who's essential to the story. Nobody likes them. So the next movie, they are not really a main character anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of, and I think that's reacting to the audience rather than making the story that you want, which I mean is fair,
but that's not
at the same time it's not. Yeah, and it's like because I don't know, we weren't around when Star Wars first came out, but I'm sure there was some character that was like
Yoda.
Ugh.
They hated Yoda,
but they kept him the same.
Yeah,
Yoda doesn't change from the first to the end. Well, I guess he's not really. Yeah, but like I don't know. Frustrating. Like Rose could have been a great character, and they could have made some redeeming quality in the last movie and had something where she's involved or done anything.
Nah, dude, she had to stay behind and help for whatever.
For some reason, she's all involved in this one, and now it's like, oh no, it doesn't matter. Like they could have done something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Speaking of, let's go on to the sequels. We have Rose, obviously. We actually have a lot from the sequels, maybe because it's just new stuff.
Yeah.
One thing we kind of missed, it's not really prequels, sequels, or original trilogy, is some of the Ahsoka stuff in Rebels. Just pops in, pops out. I just wanted to mention that real quick. I think we should go on to sequels.
Okay.
So we have Rose.
What if because we mentioned that, what if we said because Mando, Ahsoka kind of just shows up?
She shows up
and does her little lightsaber thing for a couple seconds, and then you have this little last lightsaber battle, and then she's like, oh yeah, I'm talking to this baby Yoda now. Go, it's Grogu. Goodbye. like what? I waited all this time and I got Ahsoka and this was all I got. Like,
yeah, I think they're trying to keep her at least, consistent, which I got to applaud, I guess, even though it's weird. It's consistent with how she was in Rebels. So whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Rose, Snoke. You put that one.
Yeah. Start with Snoke. Snoke drives me crazy because he's got like the cool things. He's got this big screen where he's like throws General Hux on the ground and like moves him around. And he does all these cool things where you're like, wow, this is like a truly powerful Sith. Like this guy controls all this different stuff. He's got these big ships he can use. He's got all this stuff that's available to him. You're like, I can't wait to see what he does. I feel like he could actually be a powerful master and not just be like an old man who can't move a lot and has to use force lightning. Like he could, I don't know, do something, or he's going to be this massive thing. I don't know. Those were all the things I was expecting, and then nope, he's just an old man who sits in a chair and takes Rey and goes whoop whoop whoop, and then dies. And I'm like, what? It's so much.
To be honest, it's just the lack of continuity in the trilogy, because I didn't mind that it turned out to be Palpy and it was like kind of clone related Palpy. It was just poorly done. You know, I have nothing else to say other than Snoke could have been expanded upon where he came from before the last movie, right? There's 2 other movies you could have touched on him and you decided not to. First one, maybe introduce him, show his power. Second one, start to expand on what's going on, where he came from, who he represents or who he actually is. Kill him off. Third one, like that kind of leads into Palpy. I didn't get that in the second one from The Last Jedi. Wasn't
that, or like I feel like he didn't do anything to like make me not like him. You know, like if he would have killed like if he would have killed a character that we cared about, and like it would have been because of him. Han dies because of Kylo, right? Obviously, it's Snoke doing whatever, which is really Palpy. But if it was like on his command or it was him doing so, I would have been like, okay, this is an actual character that I want to see die. Right. Yeah, I didn't want to see him die right there. Yeah, I was like, I was not interested in seeing him die right there. I was interested in seeing some weird escape or something blow up or something. I was like, well, you just killed him. And I was like, okay, well, what? Like, what was that for?
Maybe if he like killed Chewie or something.
Yeah.
Because like Kylo killed Han,
blew up C-3PO, like something.
Yeah. Like, well, okay. If we're gonna say that, then we have to say that The Rise of Skywalker is just the safest movie of all time, and that no one ever dies. You know, Chewie didn't die. C-3PO's memory isn't gone. You know, it's just safe.
Yeah, there's no sense of terror. There's no sense of they're gonna lose. You just are, even when the lightning's going down, it lasts for 2 seconds where they're falling. Nobody dies. No planes hit the ground. They all are just falling and then can all catch back on.
It's not called The Rise of Palpy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
All right. Let's keep going on sequels.
Knights of Ren.
Oh, gross.
They bring that head. You're like, oh, these guys are being business. They're going to take people out. This is going to be dope. And then even when they fight Kylo in the end,
that was the only part I liked, actually, because I think that was supposed to show that Kylo, like his true power is when he's good. You know, like he's a different fighter. There's still nothing. Like, what are their names? What do they do?
Know. It's in like some story afterwards, but like it's not in a good story.
But like I can't even label them. Like if I think about them, I don't know how many there are. There's no
what they look like.
Usually, there's a bow guy, right? And there's an axe guy, and there's a sword guy, and like I don't know what weapons I don't know anything about them other than they wear black, and that's it.
That's really bad.
They stand on a rock.
They kind of look like Avenger type of bad people, like the aliens in Marvel, and like that's all I got out of them. And I was bummed. That was one that really bummed me out because I was like, I really thought there was gonna be something cool, and I was really just like, this is gonna be dope. They're laid out to be dope. They're in the trailer to be dope. They're like following them around. It's this crew, and like
half of the scenes of the Knights of Ren in the trailer, that's like half of their time in the entire movie.
yeah
stupid.
That's drives me crazy. Same thing, like moving on from it, Maz Kanata. I feel like I can't place her anywhere. Like I couldn't. She could just pop up anywhere
Yeah,
in
she's
that
talking about how
story.
she's been around for so long. I'm like, great, where?
Yeah,
How?
um,
When?
yeah.
Why?
But I can't think of like I couldn't pick a time to be like, oh, it's probably time to call Maz Kanata. Like I feel like she just is like, oh yeah, now we suddenly can call on her as a resource because she'll happen to know, but she'll be doing some weird battle. Like, what's going on right there? When they ask her
Yeah,
about
that
the
was
stuff and she's
weird.
like shooting and
So
there's like a
weird.
shootout, and I was like, what does she do? I don't know. I thought she just was in this weird little building. Like, is
Yeah.
she out and about? Is that happening out of thing? Like, where is this happening? What is she doing? Is she involved in something with the rebellion? Is she not involved? Is she just bounty hunting stuff? I don't know,
Kind of feel like
right?
she was
Like
fighting pirates. I got that sense that she was like
that's what it
fighting
seemed
off
like.
pirates.
Like she was in like a deal that went wrong,
Yeah.
but you don't know, and there's no
Right.
reference. There's nothing.
Yeah. Keeping it with women, I'm going to assume Maz Kanata is a female.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's my assumption.
it is, but whatever. Captain Phasma,
Ugh,
maybe worse than the Knights of Ren.
really? I
She
guess
has
yeah.
like,
She's big. She's a bigger character and like supposed to be this. I don't know. I don't understand. Like, I get she has the whole thing with Finn. I get that that's supposed to be like the driving story of her is like she leads all of these uh stormtroopers and they're supposed to follow her and do her command and she's the one and that's her revenge is to take him out. But I'm like, why does she get to be so cool? She seems to just die pretty easy. She didn't
mhm.
seem very powerful or like she had some special ability to be there. Besides, she was taller than everyone.
And it really seems like she cares so much about Finn. She's like, oh yeah, finally now I get to try to kill you. It's like, bro, you didn't know who he was like 2 days
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah. And it's like, I don't. She didn't do. Again, another thing where she didn't do anything to make me hate her. You know, to make
Yeah.
me want her to die. There was
Just
no
boring.
point where, yeah, there's no point where I'm like, same thing with Snoke. Like, I didn't feel like you took out a character that I wanted, or you took out a planet, you took out this, you did this thing that's like, oh god, you pissed me off. And like, I want to be bad at the bad guy. I don't want to be like complacently watching and like, yeah, kill him off. It doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't want that. I want there to be some feeling of justice, you know. And I think that's they're missing that in the new ones more than anything. Is like there's just no reason for them to get killed when they do. Besides, it's just a person to kill to move the story along.
Right. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I see two more on our list. One's kind of funny. It's the old guy at the beginning of The Force Awakens. What? He says a few lines and he gets killed. And then it turns out that he knows some like vital information that's vital to the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
He had Obi-Wan vibes, right? Like old Ben Kenobi vibes of like, I'm this stoic old man who knows a lot of things about the Force. And
He obviously knows Kylo in some sort of way, like or knows of him. Like there's some
What is that? Like, I know where you come from.
Yeah, like he might not know him per se, but he's got to have some like military experience or some just extra
Maybe he's
knowledge.
a friend of Han.
But we don't know. We have no clue.
Yeah, we don't know.
So there's no reason
yeah.
for that's again. It's like there's no reason for me to be like mad at Kylo. Like I'm like you just killed some random person I have no idea about. I have no connection to him. All I know is that you have like a force bullet you stopped.
Yeah,
And,
I think Disney is more focused on making it look cool than they are at telling a story.
Yeah,
and that's a bummer because they've done a really good job of making things look cool and not a good job of telling the story. And what do you get? Like 55% on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it's not working.
Yeah, like it's like that scene, the whole movie visually. I'm like, yes, that's what I needed. But like, I don't know.
It was a cool opening scene. It was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah, and it's like you can stop this, and then all these guys are running down, and they're flying down. And you see the stormtroopers, and like obviously they're like
And they just
a different
murder
view.
villagers.
Yeah, and they're like a different view of what they do. You're not just like, oh, that's the ship coming down, and you're inside of it. You see them, they're nervous. They're like, oh, here we go, ready?
Mhm.
And like you get that sense of like, okay, this is gonna be intense. There's gonna be some cool thing that happens, and then it's like, well, no, not really. We're just running through. One guy here dies. Took them all out. Killed this old man.
That just reminded me of like the TikTok trend that's like if you could replace like one song in a movie, like where would you put it, right? With Fortunate Son.
Mm-hmm.
Is that screams like jumping out of a helicopter or jumping out of an airplane, like military. Like, I don't know, maybe you can do that as a TikTok. Don't take our TikTok.
Don't take our idea. Or if you want to, go ahead.
Trademarked. I just trademarked it by saying trademark.
Here you go. Here you go.
Last
I
one.
declare bankruptcy.
Yeah. Last one. Battle of Crate. Last Jedi.
Okay, do you want to take this one? Because I feel like you had definitely more to say. I had just more frustration.
I like The Last Jedi, so I'm not trying to bash it. I mean, I like all Star Wars movies, but I thought it was out there, right? So it was different than all the others. I thought the Battle of Crate was visually super cool. I liked the Luke part. I like how he kind of gave Kylo the middle finger. It made no sense how they're just like, oh, here we are down in this place. Oh, here we are. Here's some speeders. Oh, there's some big battering ram energy thing. Oh, we're all going to die. Oh, Rose is going to save Finn. Like the whole timeline and execution of that is just weird. And then Rey saves the day on the Falcon, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. And Luke's dead.
Yeah. No, that was exactly like, I felt like it was just coming up with a reason to get Luke there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, visually, it's cool, but like, it's just a reason of like, oh, there's no way out. Oh, except for there is a way out of this impenetrable fortress, and you just have to go through the back. And then here we go. Oh, there's no way out. Oh, look, there's Rey. She saves the day. Like,
yeah, it was a little too much like fantasy.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. Like, to me, I was just like, why did Luke have to be brought in? Like, I didn't think he needed to be brought in. Only if dumb decisions were made did he need to come, and they forced dumb decisions for him to come to then not tell another story of Rose and Finn. Right? I'm like, you made these characters live to not fulfill it later, and then to kill off Luke, just to kill off Luke, so there's no one there in the third movie for Rey, and she has to figure it out herself. But Leia gets to be involved. I'm like,
I think that could have been a cool like opening scene in Rise of Skywalker is Luke dying somehow. I don't know how they would have done it because they would have had to rewrite the script, and they needed a lightsaber battle in Last Jedi, so I understand. But that would have been cool because it kind of would have been a passing of the torch. Or even in The Last Jedi, more of a passing of the torch from Luke is Rey's master to now Leia. Because the torch got passed in between the two movies. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's weird when you see Leia as Rey's master
and training her. Yeah. Especially because you have no reference of her being a trained Jedi before then, right? Like, there's nothing that's really telling me that Leia's would be able to take on training someone until after the fact that she's already training someone.
Yeah, that's a big hole right there that we kind of missed, is that Leia went from, in Return of the Jedi, oh, I kind of have a little bit of Force sensitivity, to, oh yeah, by the way, I was a Jedi, but you waited 2 other movies.
Didn't do anything. Didn't say anything, didn't mention it, just was like, I feel the connection, and she always is feeling a connection. But
she didn't die out the plane. That kind of counts, but that sucked. That might be my least favorite.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But at the same time, like, I don't know, frustrating. In my mind, I'm like, if they could have taken Luke and given me like, as all of this stuff is going down, they get to the planet, they get there, they're in this place, they think there's going to be some sort of safety, and they've got it. And this thing flies in, crashes, shut the doors, and they're like, okay, great, we've got this. And then they're like, oh, wow, we're really shit out of luck. No one's coming to help us. Let's try to shoot these things. We've legitimately failed. And in that, if you could see like Luke start to feel that something's going wrong, and like you can sense that he's like connected to Leia, and you can get the sense. And if they were like doing like cuts where it was like you could see him walking around and being like, okay, accepting that this is going to be his end, and kind of like prepping his little island or something. I don't know if he could have been doing something, or like walking to the stone, like in some sort of music or theme where you're like, okay, Luke is maybe about to do something cool, or he's maybe about to do something beyond what he was doing before, and he's having his own internal like, man, I have let down everyone and I should have done this different, and now I'm going to have this fulfilling moment and really do something. I think that would have been awesome. And then you get, instead of the Finn Rose scenario, you get, it's over, they're about to die, and then boom, I've just watched Luke prepping, and this is what he's doing. He's now here, and then and you're like, this is going to be it for Luke, isn't it? Yeah. Or and you're sitting there thinking in your head, you're like, oh shoot, like is this actually the end, or is he like, was that just some scene? I don't know. And then boom, and then you're like, wow, that really was. And then you kind of know, and then there we go. Now I'm passing some torch. Now I'm seeing something. He could have been in his mind saying something to Leia. Then you could have seen some training. You could have seen something. All of that could have happened right in there and made sense, rather than it being forced in and thrown and then like, okay, here we go. But I think again, we get retrospect. So
yeah, you touched on something really important in that Luke and Leia are disconnected. And I think that's true for the three, right? Luke, Leia, and Han. They're all disconnected. Obviously, that's kind of the point in this, in the sequels, but how do you expect to make a trilogy about these three characters and not have them ever once be together?
Yeah.
You see Han and Leia briefly. You see Luke and Leia, it's Luke's ghost, Force ghost, right? But you never see them all together. You never see them have any like Luke, Leia, and Han moment. And yet you make it a pivotal, like a centerpiece of this trilogy that like it's still their story, essentially, is what you're saying. You're saying it's like it's a sequel, obviously, to the originals, and you're not ready to pass the stone, the block, I don't know what
the torch.
The torch, thank you. Something. Pass the lightsaber. You're not ready to pass the lightsaber torch to Rey, Finn, and Poe. You're still holding on to Luke, Leia, and Han, and you don't ever have them together. Like it just blows my mind. It's like,
yeah,
think about like being on Zoom right now in the world. You're not as connected to people because they're not in front of your face in person. It's the same idea. Sure, they have the Force and maybe they can be connected. We don't know that. And that's my rant.
I think, and again, we're not trying to just rant and hate Star Wars. Yeah, we're just trying to, I mean, we are right now, but I'm trying to say, like, if you're giving me characters, right, like, I expect something more. Obviously, for the older movies, it's a new thing, right? I can't blame it, but the prequels I can blame. I can say, hey, you had this other stuff to go off of. You put this in, and you just messed up, and it wasn't good. Which it doesn't mean the movies are bad. It just means like, hey, you really goofed that character and could have done better. Again, I'm not a master storyteller. I've probably done way worse. But with sequels, I mean, it's too many of them, I think, that are off and missing something. Whereas like the old ones, like we could pick 4, and we've seen it hundreds of times, and we can pick 4 of them, right? And this one, I've seen it 15 times, but I can pick almost every character there's something, which is like that's where it's different to me. But again, it's difficult. They're trying to fill in this old story. They're trying to do all this extra, and they have a lot on their shoulders of like, oh shoot, we got to fulfill the fan base and what they want and bring this new story. So it is tough. But I don't know. Lots could have changed.
So I'm thinking of the Ewoks theme song to take us out right now, but I don't really know it.
I only know the E.
Is it E?
That's all I know.
The forest moon. Oh, I was trying
wow.
to get on TikTok right now because we did it.
Great segue. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on everywhere where we are the first galactic podcast, and this will be out soon. And we will see you in the next one. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.